This is an Ellis Mowers and More small engine repair. Stay connected on Instagram and Facebook at Ellis Mowers and More. Comments or questions? Leave them below or email me, ellis@ellismowers.com. Parts used in today's repair are found using the links in the description below. And as always, like and subscribe for more small engine content. On today's repair, something that should be relatively straightforward here. We've got a John Deere LA100. This has the 5-speed transaxle in it instead of the hydro. You'll find these on, I believe, the LA100s, maybe even the LA105s, the L100s, and a couple of other, a few other iterations of John Deere mowers out there. Not the best transmissions in the world. This one should only need a belt. It's just driving a little bit slow, won't pull up hills and things along those lines. I have the belt right here. It's always good to get OEM or aftermarket. I'll put links in the description below. This is a Stems replacement belt, a 265237, and I'll put the John Deere part number down below as well. Give you options for whatever you would like to buy. So first off, we've got to take this mower deck off. I'll show you the 5 mounting points. I believe it's 5 mounting points you have to take off in order to get the mower deck off. That'll give us access to everything that we need to have access to underneath the machine. So let's go ahead and get down there. So getting underneath the machine, we're gonna look under here and I'll show you those mounting points. One of them is right here. The second one is up top here. Same on the other side. Your 5th mounting point is right here on the front. Just to take the deck belt off, you just have to lift it over these brackets, and the rest of the machine or the rest of the belt and all that stuff will come with the deck. And your last thing that you've got to pull is this pin for the blade engage spring, and you just kind of have to work that out. A lot of times what I do is I just hook it up here to get it out of the way, and you should be in good shape when it comes to that. Again, so I'm just going to take the clips off of this mount, the front mount, and then there's 2 exact mounts on the other side that are exactly like this. That will get this deck off. We'll pull the deck out, and we'll see what we have to do in order to get the belt off. It's a little bit involved, but not too bad. We've got everything off. These deck guides will likely slide off as well whenever you take the pin out. Again, don't lose the washers and things along those lines. Keep all your clips. I usually just put them on the footwell right there for the time being. Put them in safekeeping. Just drop this mount right here off of the hole, and again, take that mount off of the front as well. Take note of which way it goes, because sometimes you can mess with it and get it going the other way if you're not careful. Should be able to, well, I'm going to raise this all the way up. Doesn't really matter. Actually, it doesn't matter on this machine. And we're just going to slide it out. Relatively easy to remove, thankfully. Most decks generally are, because you have to service the deck belts and things along those lines. The deck belt on this one is in good shape, luckily. And now what I'll do is I'll get this thing jacked up, put on some jack stands. We'll give a good inspection underneath of what we have to do to take this drive belt off. So we are about to go underneath the machine. I'm going to show you the perspective that I'm going to start at, just so that you know where I'm going to start at when you're looking here. So I'm going to look underneath the mower here. What you have to do, the biggest hang up is that you have to pull this steering shaft out in order to get the belt in. So, and you have to pull these pulleys out as well. So a little bit of a task, but you can see this belt's ready to be replaced. I think I have the park brake on currently, or do I? I do not have the park brake on, and you can see actually how loose this belt is. So we've got, like I said, a loose belt, and we're going to replace it. So the biggest thing is you got to take, I think that's the 3/4. You got to take that 3/4 off, shimmy, and all you do is shimmy the shaft up for the steering shaft to get it, because it runs in between the shaft there. In order to get these pulleys off, it's probably advisable that we pull this spring off right here from this back portion. Maybe I may be able to do that now. Let's see. What you can do is, there we go. So I pulled that spring off, and then on the back side back here, because the gas tank is back here, it's a little bit challenging to get back there, but let me get you on this side of the machine. A lot of times you can access it from the side here. What it is this is an 8mm, and it basically just clips. It's like a belt keeper for this rear pulley back here. Now that rear pulley is a little loose, but it ain't bad. That rear pulley keeper is your main portion, or your main thing that keeps it on the transmission. There, and then you can also, if you're creative, you can access from underneath it, underneath the back panel right here as well. Hopefully that shows you everything that you need to do on this machine to get it off, get this belt off, and we may be even able to pull it off the back without having to move that keeper, which would be good. And I think we're going to be able to do that. Of course, the belts, we've already pulled the spring in the front there as well, and we're just gonna turn that pulley, and that's how easy it is to get it off of the back pulley. Now, like I said, for these pulleys here, all you have to do, you may be able to get lucky and spin them around, but what you got to do is take a 9/16 and loosen them up. And I'll show you how to do that here next. So we're going to work on these pulleys next. It's actually a 5/8, I believe. And you don't have to take these things completely off, but you do have to loosen them. It's not that difficult to get these things loose. Gets a little dirty though. But you could just go ahead and take off those nuts there. And these have been on a little while. I just pull it off, that way you can access the, that one does not want to come off, does it? That's too bad. So what you'll do is you'll pull these pulleys off, and what it'll allow you to do is, and we're not saving this belt, so you may be able to get by with doing what I just did there and just pulling that belt. That pulley is actually in good shape, it just doesn't want to come off of the bolt for some reason. And so that's those two pulleys. The next order of business, man, y'all getting dirty there. Just taking off this next, this steering shaft, which is a 3/4. And you just pull that out. And then you can usually work the steering gear off. There's a bushing that stays in there. And then I'm just pushing the steering shaft up. And that gets it out of the way. And then you come to the front and you have to take this double stack pulley off. And this should be a 5/8 as well. If not, it's a 9/16. It's a 5/8. And you have to take that off and What that does is it drops the double stack pulley down. Gotta go a little further. Alright, so it drops the double stack pulley so that you can take the front pulley off. And then we should just be able to pull this. Whoop, we gotta remove that all the way. Get it underneath the shaft, and we should just be able to pull this right through and right out, just like we did. So that's how you put it. That's how you take it off. I'm gonna show you step by step putting it back on as well. I mean, if you play this video in reverse, that's exactly how you should put it back on. So that's what we're gonna do. So we are back on. Let me show you. I'm just gonna explain how to go through it. Y'all saw I took it off. Just go in the reverse order. So I took the double stack pulley, put the belt inside of that. What you have to do, it's a little tricky because you have to press kind of have to tension the belt back a little bit as you press this pulley back up. I did grease the shaft a little bit so that next time when it comes off, it'll be a little bit, or it'll be just as easy as it was earlier. There is a keyway on this. You'll see it, I think it's on the opposite side, but you have to match that keyway of this double stack pulley up with the keyway on the engine, and then it'll start to slide up. You just have to pull this belt and tension it so that it goes inside of those guides that are on the frame. Before you put the belt on, be sure to slide it from the back side back here through the bottom plate of the frame to get it to the front, and not try to put it on with it being underneath the frame. Pretty self-explanatory with the way that the deck belts are routed, but still wanted to mention that. Now as for these two pulleys, I know I couldn't get this big one off, but I was able to just roll it on with no issue, and then I just slid it back on to this one, and then slid the pulley back into where it mounts and bolted it back down. Fairly easy. And then the rear, we worked on the rear back here, and what we did was take pretty much just get it through that guide on this side and just roll it around and have it match on the back side of that pulley right there. And the last step we have two more steps to do. One of the steps is putting this spring back on. Hopefully I've got enough strength in order to do that. If I don't, I have alternative methods of making this happen here. So I'm gonna actually put let's see. So, because it's a little bit difficult, especially now that we've got some spring tension on it. There we go. If you can't do that, you can get a piece of pull rope and give you a little bit more leverage. Put it on the back side of that spring right there. This belt seems to be a little bit tighter, so hopefully that is going to be the case, and that we have a good drive on this mower again. So what I will do next is I'm just going to get it off of the jack stands, but what I also have to do is get the steering shaft back in it. So what I've done is I just pulled the steering shaft up top, and I'm going to find it and then just slide it back down where it is right there. So let me do that. As long as your wheels are straight, just make sure everything's pointed straight. We'll slide this steering gear back into place also. And then finally, we'll just put the nut back on for the steering shaft. With the 3/4. This is honestly the hardest part about it. As long as your steering shaft, and your double stack pulley come off, pretty easy squeezy job here. Like I said, we're just gonna hopefully have good drive now and not have a belt slipping, because the other one was starting to crack and whatnot, and it was getting kind of old, as you can see right there. So I'm gonna get it off the jack. We're gonna see if it drives a little bit better. Either way, it needed one. And hopefully that's all we need to do. If we have to experiment, then we will do so, but I hope that we don't. Alright, so everything is back together. Tested it out already. I just want to show y'all that everything works like it should now. Smoking a little bit. Hopefully they don't have a head gasket going on this mower. But we got it in reverse. We'll throttle it up a little bit. Release the brake. And so what was happening was, just make sure I don't hit anything. It's a little bit of a maze here in my shop right now. What was happening was, whenever you put it in gear, and especially if you were trying to climb a hill or something, it wasn't going anywhere. But now I've climbed hills and everything, and all the gears are working like they should. You can hear the belt firmly engage. And so we fixed the issue that this thing had of it not pulling up hills and whatnot. I had to drive this thing up a hill to get it onto my trailer. Thankfully, it pulled in reverse. Thankfully. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put the deck back on it and just wrap everything up. Again, just those 5 mounting points on the deck. We'll get that deck back on for you, and you'll be in good shape. All right, guys, we're back together. May give this a little wash for the customer as well. They're in their, a little bit older, in their 80s, so might help them out a little bit when it comes to that. So we've got the deck back on here, and hopefully everything's situated good. Again, your mounts, I think they cut their grass pretty low anyway, so it's set kind of high, but I think they usually cut it at like number 2, so it's set pretty good for number 2 there. And again, your mounts on the side, again, the one in the front, don't forget your washers, and then the other side as well, and then your blade engage cable goes underneath the arm here, the arm and the belt, and attaches to the pivot arm on the right side of the machine. So that's it for replacing this belt. So that Sten's belt that I showed y'all was actually a D&D belt. I wonder if Sten's outsources some of their belts to D&D, possibly, or it could have just been false advertising. I'm not sure. This belt is working just fine though. Like I said, it's always good to have OEM belts, but on some of these you can get by with the generic belts and be fine. They may not last as long, but they'll be good. Supposedly this is a Sten's belt. We'll see, how it lasts for the customer. It's driving good now, and if anything, what I might do next time if this comes in is to get a belt that's about a 1/2 inch shorter, because even this belt seems like it's a little bit loose on whenever you let the brake off fully. If you just barely push the brake in, it actually stops the machine. So we potentially could have an issue when it comes to that. I'm not completely sure. Only time will tell. I pulled up hills and ditches and stuff here at my house just to make sure that it pulled good up those, and it does. So that's everything associated with that. Hopefully this video y'all found helpful. I'll put links in the description below to an OEM John Deere belt if it's available on Amazon, as well as just a generic or the Sten's belt that I used, and the part number as well if you decide to go the generic route. But we got this LA100 back going again. I got to do a little bit more work on it, but That's not going to be part of the video. Just replacing the drive belt on this was the only thing I wanted to showcase, because I know it helps y'all out a lot in terms of just general how-to stuff sometimes. So thank you again for watching this how-to small engine repair, putting this drive belt on this John Deere LA100. Again, it works on any of these LA series John Deere machines that have this 5-speed transmission in them, those really low-level John Deeres. Y'all take care, and I'll catch you on the next video. See you then.